Welcome, dear Thriver to ThriverTV and our wonderful community where you can heal for real from narcissistic abuse and toxic relationships. Today I want to talk about a hot topic, which is repetitive compulsion disorder. And a lot of people are talking about this right now. In usual psychological terms, repetitive compulsion disorder is the repeating of painful behaviours unconsciously as an attempt to cope with unhealed traumas. So there's examples of things like excessive cleaning or hand washing. Today I want to talk about repetitive compulsion disorder in regard to toxic relationship abuse, what it is, how it plays out, and how to heal it. So let's start off by investigating the inner fractures of repetitive abuse. So this is when you're experiencing things such as the repeat triggers of the abuse, you're constantly ruminating about the abuse, you could be having nightmares or flashbacks, and you find yourself checking up on somebody who's abused you or breaking no contact. That's all a part of the psychological disorder, the phenomenon, which is called repetitive compulsion disorder. It's a cycle of continuing the pain and hurt and feeling powerless to step out of it. This disorder it's a self-destructive barrier, and it's a sabotage to letting go and moving on. And it actually got set up inside of us when we're very young and powerless, and I'm going to talk about that soon. If you feel like you can't stop thinking about somebody or keep away from somebody who's repetitively hurting you, then you are suffering from repetitive compulsion disorder. So the past roots of this came from primary caregivers and us wanting to bond, to receive safety, trust and care, but instead you were invalidated, distrusted, humiliated, belittled, or even abandoned. You hoped for acceptance, love, empathy, and to be valued, yet you couldn't durably receive it. So what this did is it reinforced deep inner feelings of low self-worth and shame, which is at the root of repetitive compulsion disorder, and it commonly occurs in people who've had complex trauma in their childhood. And these are behavioural patterns that continue to play out in adulthood, and they're strongly triggered and reactivated by narcissistic individuals, which I'm going to explain to you soon. But before I do, let's talk about rats and repetitive compulsion disorders. There have been studies done with rats to see their obsessive compulsions. So they're in a cage and they've got a button which is programmed for them to push a certain amount of times for them to get a feed of pellets. Now, when the button is on a set program, the rats quickly work that out, push the button, get the pellets, eat them, and they're happy. But when the button turns to random, something bizarre happens. The rats start manically pushing the button. There's pellets all over the bottom of the cage and they cannot stop doing it. When the button goes back to a set number, the rats settle down and they go back to their normal behaviour. Now, if the button is then programmed again to random and then to normal, and this happens more often, it takes the rats longer to be able to settle down. So in regards to us as humans, narcissistic individuals are unpredictable. One moment they seem believable, reliable and safe, and that you've reached resolution and understanding with them. And the next they say or do something that is not the reality of the situation. They act out of a defense mechanism that means that they're denying accountability. They make excuses. They could project blame. And it seems like any previous sane conversation that was based in integrity, it actually never took place. It's like the conversation never happened. This is the proverbial rug being pulled out from under you. And of course, as you know from experiencing a narcissistic individual, this is only a small snapshot of the deception, the unknown territory, and the rampant distrust that you suffer from being in a relationship with a narcissistic individual. To be able to break these chains of distrust, de-evolution, and your continual breakdown, a growth in consciousness is required to be able to stop doing those repeat behaviours of going in for more that continue to hurt us and don't allow us to let go and move on. Let's check out, because this is interesting, how empaths and narcissists display repetitive compulsion disorder differently. Most humans, we would agree, want to have predictability and safety in their external environment, just as the rats did. After a traumatic event, you would usually want to make sense of it and might try and battle it out there to try to make things sane and safe again. Most empaths seek to understand. They go towards people to try to understand what the reality of what's going on with that person, and they want to try to sort matters out. Empaths also express what is happening for them, what they're feeling, to try to make the other person understand what is happening inside of the empath truthfully. Empaths do that to try to connect. Narcissists don't have the compulsion as empaths do to go towards others to try to get reason and safety. Safety to a narcissist is not what it is for an empath. Things like vulnerability, honesty, transparent collaboration. Rather, it's avoiding these things so that the false self, the ego, can be held separated and stay superior in regard to others, because that's what maintains the false self, is the separation. To do this, narcissists decide their own version of truth. They don't have partnership with others. They're not interested in what's going on inside of you. They're only interested in their version of things, which is a narrative necessary to preserve the false self. When you're in discord or disagreement with a narcissist, you know, you've experienced this. He or she will refuse to have a candid conversation about what happened. A narcissist is resistant to that. They're also resistant to you looking at them for accountability, safety, honesty, and empathy. The more you try, the more they will disconnect and defend the false self with alternative realities, excuses, non-relevant information, projections, tit for tat, and other defense mechanisms. The narcissist's repetitive compulsion disorders, which means making unconscious repeat behaviours, doing the same stuff over and over, that's painful, which is coming from unhealed traumas, they're the defences that you see. And they've come with their broken, disowned inner identity, which is guarded determinedly by the false self, the ego. And as such, you'll notice that when a narcissist comes back into your life after a separation, they're not interested in the discussion, the nitty-gritty discussion about what happened, how it happened, the accountability for it, and what is necessary for the understanding and the healing and the steps in place for it to not happen again in the future. They don't want to work that out or look at that deeply. This inability to lean into you is also an inability to face the inner truth about themselves. And without personal development, they don't change, and neither does a narcissist relationship capacity. Let's talk about the growth that's necessary to heal from repetitive compulsion disorder. And what's so important is, like all addictions, the actual behaviour that repeat behaviour, that's actually not the issue. It's a symptom of the real core issue. And the core issue is the feelings of defectiveness, shame, and rejection within us that have caused us to try to make somebody love and value us and treat us with care, honesty, and empathy. The problem is we can't change anyone else. We can only change and heal ourselves. Otherwise, we continue the patterns with other people who have neither the capacity or the desire to meet us in a whole, healthy, loving way. The real truth is we need to become the people, the whole and self-loving people who can be met by healthy others at a real level of connection, teamwork, intimacy, vulnerability, and integrity, and believe that we're worthy of this. As children, we felt helpless and hopeless regarding our painful beliefs, and we couldn't heal ourselves up beyond these feelings. But as adults, we can. And this requires turning within, self-partnering, and finally meeting and healing this unfinished business. You may feel like this repetitive compulsion has only come on as an adult, but yet it was set up when we were very young. So the real question to yourself is deeper than, why do I have repetitive compulsion disorder? It really is, what unhealed traumas from the past, where my needs weren't met safely, are causing me to play out these same traumas again? And how can I meet and heal these traumas and heal myself from the inside out beyond them? I'd love to invite you to take a pen and paper and start turning inwards to what's really going on here. And I want you to write out this question. When I keep thinking about the person who hurt me and keep going toward them, how do I really feel about myself? Breathe deeply, open your body, and check inside of you. And you may have feelings such as, I feel unworthy of love, defective, not good enough, unlovable, unheard, unmet, not valued. That would be all really common feelings, and you may have more. And then ask yourself, what needs of mine are not being met by staying connected to this person? And you may have feelings such as recognition, honesty, safety, support, care, kindness, healthy communication, resolution, love, truth. Then write out this question. When before this time have I had these same feelings? And then open your body and breathe and trust what answers arise from within. And it's important not to try to logically work it out. Open your body, breathe, and take your attention inside of yourself, because that's where your somatic inner emotional self can arise. Because it's there that you have the answer. And now, after getting the answer, you can imagine seeing this small self, your small self within your inner being. And imagine that you're having a conversation with this little self, and say, sweetheart, I know you didn't receive these things in your past, and you're still trying to from people who match the same pattern. I now know that only I can turn inwards to you and love you and devote to you enough to help you heal from this. And then you can imagine holding him or her and pouring love from your heart into your inner child, and keep breathing and your body relaxed and open. And tell your inner child that you love him or her unconditionally and that you are never leaving again. And this is the beginning of you starting to come home to yourself to heal. Self-partnering and self-healing is a life devotion of moving out of the pain and things like repetitive compulsion disorder into wholeness. And at first it can seem really foreign to do that, or even a waste of time, because we haven't been shown or taught how to do this as a life skill. But I promise you that you can. It starts with changing your self-talk and the decisions that we make regarding how we treat ourselves. Another great question to ask yourself is, how would you treat yourself if you were somebody else who you adored and cared for? Would you drink or smoke or eat junk or chase after emotionally unavailable people and tell yourself how terrible and weak you are? No. Would you keep lying to yourself with false promises? Would you keep repeating the actions that keep hurting you and letting yourself down? Or would you dedicate yourself to your growth and healing and become healthier, happier, and having higher self-worth and self-value? Ideally, you would. I'd love to take you on a journey to understand this much further, how you can heal from within and take your soul and your life back from repetitive compulsion disorder, and also the people who represent the unsafety, the unpredictability and unloving behaviour that goes with it. So I'm going to put up the link, which is my Quantum Freedom Healing page, which is a powerful tool that can work directly on your subconscious states that formed in childhood regarding any of the negative beliefs or patterns, to raise you up out of the old, repetitive, painful patterns. And I created an app, which is a 10-step process to achieve this. It's the most powerful way I've discovered to take our humanity and our souls back. And as always, I look forward to reading your comments and your questions about this episode. I hope it made sense, and I hope it helps. And I hope it explains why you've been doing this. And there's hope for you to heal out of it. So until the next episode, keep smiling, keep healing, and keep thriving. because there is nothing else to do. Lots of love. Bye-bye.